Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about everything Savage Worlds from the past week, and then we have a fun topic later. Today, I'm joined by Ben Giles of White Witch Games. He's here to talk about his setting Vermilion, and as well as the new Kickstarter, but we'll get to that in a moment. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk about the setting and kind of get more details on how you came up with it. But before we dive into that, we are going to start with our rest of the show. So let's go ahead and, for the agenda, we'll go and start with the newsletter. And I have the newsletter pulled up. I kind of moved over here for some reason. There we go. All right. Oh, skip to the end. Spoilers. So this is the final full week of the booster campaign for the Pathfinder Savage Worlds for the Advanced Player's Guide 2 and the Bestiary 2. So if you're interested in getting those, or if you want to get like the second printing of the core rulebooks, there are some like offers to get some of the original books and everything, core rulebooks and such, through the second printing through this Kickstarter. So feel free to do that as well. Probably one of the best ways to get the next set of Pathfinder books, if you're just getting into it, or if you want to get them, it's going to be through this Kickstarter. So go ahead and take a look at that. And yeah, just check it out. Savage Saturday Cinema. This is the third installment. I believe it's the third installment. I think it's the third of the Savage Saturday Cinema presents from Pinnacle. These are just like kind of a short adventures or like one-shot adventures from Pinnacle, doing kind of different settings. Basically, things like a lot of ideas that they have for kind of one-shot adventures that they're aren't going to see full books on. But if you are interested in getting these like one-shots, they come with pre-generated characters. Probably really good for one-shot play, or for like convention play if you're interested in that kind of thing. This one is the I don't know how to say this right. There's always something in these past few weeks where I don't know how to pronounce it. Verona's Verona's incident. So pulpy creature feature set in Soviet town during the Cold War. So so it sounds like fun. It's got spies, it's got science, it's got some monsters. If you're familiar with Johnny Quest or Venture Brothers, that's the kind of vibe they're going for here. So I usually try to grab it. I think I have the other two as well, so I'll probably grab this one as well. And I don't think I've run any of them. Have you run either of these Saturday Cinemas, Ben?
I haven't had the pleasure, not yet.
Yeah, I want to. I just haven't got. I have like a backlog of so many things I want to play, and it's just too big. I need to start playing shorter adventures instead of these like 6-book campaigns like the Pathfinder. No, I play those too. It's just on there. If you backed the Savage World Science Fiction Companion, such as I did, the PDFs are available for I guess for everything based on what I've seen. If you haven't finished your order, you just need to go to your Pinnacle account, log in, do your shopping cart, and finish the order. You may need to redeem some sort of coupon, like the sci-fi comp coupon, if it's applicable to you. But go ahead and check that out. Make sure you got your PDFs. Read through them. I believe they are doing a couple rounds of feedback before sending them to publisher. Right here. Feedback for the Science Fiction Companion closes next Friday, the 28th. So be sure to reach out if you do see any issues with them. Either like, I don't know where they're taking the feedback. I think it's either just in the Kickstarter or just like through the email, maybe some other places. But if you do find anything, make sure they let them know. Savage Worlds is going to be at Origins. Origins is one of the bigger gaming conventions, like outside Gen Con. Gen Con's absolutely huge. Origins is fairly large as well. It is in Columbus, Ohio. And this is the one that I can't go to this year, but I'm going to hope to start going to these in the future, starting like next year. Start going to these specifically to Origins. And this is going to be the 49th year at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. It's the 49th year for Origins, I should say. And there's going to be some Savage Worlds events. Studio 2, which is the publisher for Savage Worlds products, they're going to be there selling Savage Worlds products as well as other Studio 2 stuff, which is quite a few things actually. So check that out. And if you should swing by, booth number 1534 to cast the vote for one of the Origin Awards for the Holler campaigns. The category, I believe, is Best 2D Art in a Game or in a role-playing game. I don't know if it's just gamer role playing game. But go check that out and cast your vote for that because the art in that book is also very nice. And if you know Jody and Clint Black, they are the owners for Carolina Game Tables. They are also having their own booth for some really awesome tables. If I ever get around to getting myself a gaming table, I'm getting myself a Carolina gaming table. They're very nice tables, very like dining room table replacements. So these aren't like just like some of the cheaper ones you've seen out there where they're like made of cork board and stuff. These are like very nicely done gaming tables that can also replace your dining room table. So go check those out if you're interested in those kind of things, or just kind of look how cool the tables are. This week on the Savage Universe stream, they are going to be talking with Jacob Navarro about Nasid Mali. Again, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but sounds right. And the Kickstarter for that, we'll talk about that Kickstarter when we get to the Kickstarter section. But if you're interested in learning more about it, go check out the Kickstarter. Go check out the live stream on Thursday. Yeah, on Thursday with JM and Jacob Navarro. And look at this. Hey, we know what this is. Licensee Spotlight is for Vermilium, the Blood Hunt for Savage Worlds, which launches today. We're talking about more about this in a bit as we talk to Ben here. But if you want to just kind of jump ahead and just click on those links in here for the Kickstarter. I do apologize. I think I need to make sure update a few links in my descriptions and show notes. It was a busy day today, so I didn't have time to get some things updated. But go take a look at that. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. And then this is about the Dragon Chair from Carolina Games, which is the ones that make the really good gaming tables. These are some just new chairs that they're selling soon as well. All right, and then just our normal crowdfunding report for Pinnacle stuff. We're just waiting. We're just waiting. I'm waiting for so many things right now. But we are in the preparing to ship phase for the Savage Worlds 20th anniversary celebration. So I have a lot of things coming for that one. I'm super excited for the rewards for that. Kind of wishing I would have gotten a few more rewards, but I don't think I need them. It's always tempting to get more things than you need. You gotta kind of clear yourself back a little bit. All right. So with that, we'll go back over to our agenda here. Kickstarters. The Small Sidekicks Kickstarter ends this Thursday, June 20th. If you're interested in that, it is a Super Pets setting, like a small companion to helping you run Super Pets games. Was it the Adventures of Secret Life of Super Pets, something like that? No, I think mixing Super Life of Pets and something else. But there's a movie out there where you play as Super Pets, and this is kind of like that. So go check that out. The Nasid Mali, that campaign ends Sunday, July 7th. Again, if you're more interested in hearing more about this setting, it's like a sci-fi. It's some sort of sci-fi setting. I don't know how to explain it other than just like reading verbatim what they have. But if you're interested in hearing more about it, check out the live stream on Thursday over at Savage Universe. They got a lot. You should have plenty of questions. Just shoot them in a question and get any and hear more about it. Did I skip one? No. Okay. Ending Thursday, June 27th is the Pathfinder for Savage World. So again, that's I guess that's next week. This is going to be ending for the Bestiary 2 and the Advanced Player's Guide 2, as well as the other kind of stuff that you can get in the Kickstarter. If you want to get on that, make sure you sign up by Thursday, June 27th. And then ending Thursday, July 4th is, again, Vermilium Blood Hunt, which that's what we're going to talk about today with Ben. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. We're going to talk about this and just what is Vermilium. So I'm going to stop my screen share real quick, and we'll just kind of get started talking. Again, Ben, thank you for joining us today.
No, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let me get see a few things here. Sorry. All right. But yeah, so if you're just joining us, we are going to be talking about Vermilium and what the setting is. We're going to talk about with Ben here about that and the new campaign on Kickstarter for Blood Hunt, which is going to be an adventure for Vermilion. But let's start with what is Vermilion. Ben, what is your elevator pitch? Actually, no, before we start with the elevator pitch, before we start talking about Vermilion, let's talk about you real quick, actually. Okay. How did you start with RPGs? And then what got you into Savage Worlds?
So I didn't start RPGs until pretty late, actually. It was after I finished uni, I started getting back into my old hobbies like wargaming, Warhammer, all that sort of stuff. Um, and it wasn't really scratching the itch anymore. So I started looking around. I think I discovered Acquisitions Incorporated. They started doing YouTube actual plays and live shows at that time. So that started getting me into D&D. So I started looking around because I wanted to do my own setting straight away. I didn't really want to play in a D&D world, Pathfinder world or anything. And I knew I wanted to do something about Westerns and a bit of mix of fantasy and everything. So I started looking online and I found Deadlands, the classic book.
But the 1990s version?
Yeah, man, the orange cover just looks super slick with the Grom artwork on the front. So I started thinking about getting this because I knew it was out of print. So I thought, is it worth it? And then I saw the Bruce Campbell forward in the front page. So I was like, well, this is a must buy for me. So that was my introduction to RPGs, was old school Deadlands.
Nice. Okay. So Deadlands is your introduction to RPG, and then from Deadlands you found Savage Worlds?
Exactly. Yeah, it was just a snowball after that, and eventually I found all the other Savage World settings from Aces and Pinnacle themselves. And yeah.
And how long ago was that?
This was about 10, 12 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So like 2012, around there.
Yeah.
About 14, 20.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually about when I first discovered Savage Worlds too. So okay. I didn't get into it immediately. I probably waited till about 2015 to like really get into it. 2014, 2015. But no, awesome. So Vermilium then released last year. So you've been playing in, for 10 and 11 years in Savage Worlds, and you released Vermilium. How did Vermilium kind of start for you? How did that first begin?
Well, like I said, I wanted to do my own setting straight away, and I knew I wanted to mix fantasy and westerns because that was my two biggest loves as a kid growing up, just western and fantasy movies. So I started world building around 2013, something like that, and I managed to get a group together by about 2015. So we started playing. The group immediately loved it, and that campaign actually ran for about 6 years.
Oh wow!
From novice to well beyond legendary, got crazy toward the end. But this was a real mashup of different genres. It wasn't quite what Vermilium is now. But after the campaign ended, I thought, well, I kind of want to keep going with this. And I had enough world building material. I had enough setting rules and sort of customized material to really put together a setting. So I just started doing that. And it took me about 4 years to write the book.
Okay. So if you started this one, 2015, you started with Explorers Edition, correct?
Yes, did you?
Yeah. So as and did you guys switch over to using SWADE in the middle of the campaign, or did you guys like just stay in Explorers Edition then like switch over, when you put the book together?
It was a slow switch, just a few rules here and there as and when they came up. It wasn't a full-on let's remake our characters or anything like that.
Okay, cool. So did you find that so you found that switch pretty smooth then from Explorers Edition to, I mean, most people do. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
It was very smooth.
Okay. So then let's go and move on to talking about Vermilion then, as far as like what is your elevator pitch for Vermilion? Like you're trying to convince someone to play Vermilion. How do you do that? What's your description of it?
Vermilion is it's a mashup of dark fantasy, Weird West, steampunk, and post-apocalyptic genres. If you're into that, Vermilion is your game. You're going to be playing as anti-heroes, so lovable rogues, witches, tomb robbers, bounty hunter knights, werewolves, vampires. We've got it all. And it's all set in a new world inspired by the Old West, the Gilded Age, and the pre-colonial Americas. So instead of favoring European fantasy, this is all about sort of Americana, or the mythology surrounding it. You're going to be fighting oppressive imperial rule and doctrine, evil witch covens, engineers, sorcerer cults, very pulpy, very sort of Savage Worlds, I think. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the elevator pitch.
Perfect. Yeah. So first I'll kind of show the book off real quick, just because so everyone can see it. This book. Let me zoom out real quick. Oh no, zoom in. That's zoom out. This is the book Vermilion. This the art on this book is beautiful. I don't know how to describe it, like the art style. Just kind of give it like some sneak peeks, like the art inside the book. It's all like the same, similar art style. And who was the artist for this?
So this was Alex Vede from Spain. He's actually a comic book artist, so he does his own web comics, his own printed books. So I managed to snatch him just for this book, and
That's
he's
perfect.
done all of the artwork. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you can see on the cover here, you mentioned how this is a post-apocalyptic setting, so you can kind of see some ruins there. But these people aren't, society is kind of revitalized itself. And that's what I think. That's actually that post-apocalyptic fantasy. It's actually what got me super interested.
Okay.
For like a long time ago, I wanted to do some sort of post-apocalyptic, but like real world. I think I much prefer this because so it's post-apocalyptic. Do you want to, without spoiling anything, do you want to talk? Is there anything you can mention about kind of a little more of that history of who came before?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So
Because
very quickly.
it's not like modern. It's not like modern day. It's much different than that.
Yeah. So really quickly. So I grew up in Cornwall, England, and it's if you ever get yourself down there, it's kind of like the Shire from Lord of the Rings, but the landscape is just dotted around with these old industrial ruins, because that's where Cornwall's sort of culture was built from, is the sort of tin mining and all that kind of thing, and railroads. And they sort of fell into disrepair about 100 years ago, so it's just full of these ruined buildings. So that inspired me to make this post-apocalyptic setting. The old culture is very much of the industrial age, very not steampunk necessarily, but sort of 1850s era, very mechanized manufacturing factories, this kind of thing. And these fell into ruin thousands of years ago. No one really knows how long.
Right.
So the world of Vermilium is built on top of the ruins of this ancient civilization. Not only do you have the sort of indigenous populations that sort of grew over it naturally over those thousands of years, but you've also now got the Imperials, the human race, who came over about 300 years ago and started colonizing the world.
Yeah. So you got basically just people invading, in a sense, just coming over from well, essentially is Europe. We'll call it Europe, if you will.
Yeah, pretty much.
The East, and then colonizing the country, and so you have a lot of those conflicts that we can kind of remember from our own actual history, but also with some like new fantasy twists in there as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So the older civilizations were very sort of steampunk orientated, but that technology has obviously been lost for a long time. A lot of the indigenous people, they either fear or they see this as superstitious. They avoid it with all they can. They don't want to unearth these ruins, but the Imperials, they don't have any such restrictions. So they've been unearthing it and developing their own technology based on this old sort of magitech, if you will.
Yeah. Because I think that's one thing I want to point out. Is like it's not like this is like a non-magic. This is still a fantasy setting. We have magic, and the old world had magic as well. So that's something to kind of bring out from there. You do use a lot of the classic races in this, but you don't use them in a classic way. You do have a few new ones as well. I know that Sasquatch is a fun little, it's fun little ancestry there. I like what you did with the languages, and I think I want to talk about languages and how you use them later, because I find actually the way you use languages to be extremely interesting in kind of creating that tension between strangers, essentially between like these societies. But so we'll get into that in a second. But I actually would like to talk a little bit about the ancestries, because you have your halflings, you have your elves, you have your dwarves. They are not your typical dwarves. You can see like the elements of them. They're you got these twists on them. And actually, I feel like a lot of the stuff that in here is, and I like this as a compliment here, is you're taking some like ideas that I think a lot of us know well as people who are in fantasy and in gaming and in some element sci-fi and stuff. But you have these like really unique twists on them that changes your outlook on how things should should, put in air quotes, be inside a game. For instance, you said that you're playing anti-heroes. You're not playing heroes, you're playing anti-heroes. When we can dive into more about why. But yeah, so talking about ancestry. So looking at like I'm trying to think like, where do I start with that? I think we could start with like how you. Let's just start with like the elves, like and your twist on them, because you have like there's like what several tribes of elves, right?
Correct, yes. Several different kingdoms of elves. So I try to make them analogous to real world peoples, but again, like you say, with a twist. And I try and bring in as many influences that sort of shaped America today as I can. So the elves, and again, each race or each bloodline in Vermilion has a bunch of different factions and cultures within that bloodline. It's not like you just get elves and that's one culture. You've got about half a dozen different cultures. But the main elven kingdoms take inspiration from the Caribbean. So you've got this sort of archipelago of seafaring elves, this kingdom that's sprawled across this ocean, and they're very nomadic, moving around in flotillas and fleets of these catamarans. You've got elves of the desert, so they're a bit pulpier, so they're more sort of cannibalistic, tribal, but again ruled over by royalty. And you've got the mysterious elves to the south. They're kind of based on more Aztec, Mayan, Mesoamerican cultures. So you've got a real mix, even just within one bloodline. So my elves, they're not exactly your graceful Tolkien elves. They're very very tall, but very broad, very muscular, very hunter-gatherer, but still being ruled by this sort of royal family structure.
Yeah, and there is an element like they're at least some of them are a bit darker and like they're not the glowy happy-go-lucky elves. They're more like deep, dark, gritty kind of elves. And actually, I think you actually really see that in almost all the races, all the kind of like the way you present at least the indigenous races in and I mean the humans too, not just indigenous races, but all the races. The way you present them is a lot darker than what I think most fantasy tends to put them. It's like more Tolkien fantasy. This is more I can't think of a dark fantasy author right now, but they're more it's a they're like it's way more gritty, darker, like and so you have the elves, you have the dwarves, and like in a civil war between them in their history. Was it between like that's just two factions that had the civil war?
It was it was kind of two coalitions.
Factions. Okay. I'm not sure how much you want me to say about them. I don't try not to reveal too much because it's really exciting.
Please do.
Okay, so I mean, so you got and the two coalitions are essentially the vampiric dwarves and the non-vampiric dwarves.
Correct.
Which one I think that we think vampires. I don't think that people tend to think dwarves, but here we are. And that's like okay, that's like these, and they live in they live in mountains, right? But they live in the cold.
Yeah, not necessarily mountains. So they're not like underground mountain-dwelling dwarves. These are more like northern Native American tribes, First Nations, that kind of thing. So some live in the mountains, some live in the rivers, and like pine forests and that kind of.
But mostly where it's cold.
Mostly where it's cold for the dwarves. Yeah.
Yeah. And your hobbits are like some of the hobbits are more like, almost like. Well, sorry, the halflings. They're
it's avoid copyright.
Yeah. Because that copyright, even though those books were around for long, they're not public domain. The halflings are. Some of them are like jungle faring, like jungle. Which again, I definitely don't think jungle. Usually, I think halflings because also like you said we think Shire, we think, in their hobbit holes, drinking tea and eating crumpets and, whatever. And these ones are more more nomadic. They're jungle faring. They is there some that live in the desert too?
No halflings in the desert.
No halflings in the desert. Okay. Also, I read it recently. I'm trying to remember like where each people are. And the there's like the land mass itself is very fun because you can kind of see that you can see like a slight similarity to like some of the older maps for the New World for South America, but you also can see like something unique you're doing like with the crescent, the mountains and such. So there's a lot of like fun stuff you're doing here, but I also feel like kind of that you haven't over detailed things, which is really nice because like you've definitely you've given a nice structure to the world without over detailing it to the point where we can't kind of add in our own details, which is as GMs and players and stuff, which is perfect. Okay, so moving on from those, you did, like I said, we talked that these are anti-heroes, not heroes. We aren't playing heroic characters. We're playing however you want to define anti-heroes. And one of the ways you did that was you just kind of like show off what it means to be an anti-hero. Was you added in the ability to take more hindrances. So let's talk about just saying how did that fit into what you're doing?
So again, just looking at the inspirations that made Vermilium, we're looking at old westerns, revisionist spaghetti westerns, fantasy movies or fantasy books that were around in the 90s and early 2000s. So more George R.R. Martin and Tolkien. None of these characters are particularly heroic. None of them are doing anything out of the goodness of their own heart. They're doing it for their own gain, or they're doing it for no other reason than to simply follow their own path. If they do good deeds along the way, then that's just circumstantial. So that's exactly why I wanted to present anti-heroes in Vermilium. You're playing the man with no name. You're playing Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. You're playing these people who are willing to do what it takes to get the job done.
Okay. And then the hindrance thing, why? Because the setting rule is called anti-hero and you are allowing more hindrances. How did that play into your thought process for like kind of displaying anti-heroes?
I didn't want to introduce a really complicated setting rule that tracks things like morality or anything like that. I think that's more of a character-driven, narrative-driven thing that players and GMs can work together with. I didn't want to codify that in a rule system. So the anti-hero rule is just a simplistic way of showing that your characters are flawed individuals. They have hidden pasts or character quirks that might come up during play. I also wanted you guys or players to be a little bit more powerful from the get-go. So in order to do that, you just take an extra couple of hindrances if you want, and you can spend those extra points at character creation just to give you edges or extra abilities.
Yeah, because it's a way to like make people stronger without like at the beginning without but also giving them like a downside to it as well. It's like
exactly,
yeah, which is nice. So no, and I think I always like seeing in books the unique ways that people kind of take the existing mechanics and like redo them in a way to kind of fit their needs and stuff. And that's one of those ways that I like how you did there, because you didn't introduce, like you said, you didn't introduce a new mechanic, you didn't introduce a new way. It's just taking existing mechanics and kind of like expanding them in a sense. Okay, we're going from 4 points to 6 points instead of so that's really cool. And then one of the other things you did was for your other setting rule is that basically when you get your character, you know your language, and then and you're using the language specialty skills essentially, where you don't just know the language already. You have a die type in it, so you start as a D8, I think, in the language and then you get a D4 in another language. Now, which is now I had to kind of read through that to make sure I understood that. And the cool thing, one of the things I like about how you kind of make that tension, even for players who are probably really charismatic, and is putting that tension of like, hey, you may be really good at doing these things, but when you talk to somebody that you don't know, or you don't that they don't know you have to use the lower of your persuasion or the language that you have in common with them, right? Which also means that if you don't have a language in common with them, you're gonna have a big problem trying to communicate with them and persuading them at all. So trying to make friends out there becomes difficult. I think a lot of times we see in fantasy games, especially where players are trying to make they're trying to make friends with the NPCs quickly, right? And usually it's like, why would you not? I'm already thinking about like players like getting mad that the NPCs are not being nice to them. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like no, they don't trust you.
that's right.
And that's just like the beauty of what you're doing there with that. So yeah, so for those watching, it's definitely a very gritty, more you said, I guess you said like dark fantasy setting.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm just kind of looking through the book for a second because
No worries.
it's a really
But just
pretty
off the
book.
back of that setting rule you just mentioned, yes, it
Yeah.
is difficult to make friends. It is difficult to communicate with other people not of your culture, but you are encouraged to do that.
Yes.
As anti-heroes, yes, you're going to be drifters moving through towns, and you can help people in town. They're going to be distrustful of you at first. But if you can gain their trust, if you can do good deeds for them, for whatever reasons you're doing them, you can actually get real bonuses in that town, and you can actually find yourself a community that you can call home, that you can come back to.
Yeah, because one of the things you did, and you reward players. This is one of the things that, like, if you want to have a certain kind of gameplay in a game, you want to reward players for that kind of gameplay. So
Mhm.
people often talk about, like, in D&D, you're rewarded with experience. So the way to that it encourages fighting, for the most part, fighting characters, or going to obstacles of some sort in doing that. And then whereas and for that gameplay, for that particular portion, you can get favors from them, but you can also get conviction from them as
Mhm.
well. And players love conviction a lot, so that makes sense to absolutely do. Now, one of the other things that you did put a lot of emphasis on, that is, I think, different than most games, it is your hunter and gatherer options. Basically, codifying a little bit for mechanics around how to do things, how to hunt and gather items. Do you want to speak a little more to get way more to what the mechanics are, and what you want to explore, but also why?
Mm. So hunting and gathering, that's again taken from American culture, straight up into mechanics. It's how you can hunt down monsters. You can harvest their parts, so you can get their furs. You can take their horns, claws, teeth, or any other special esoteric body parts that you can think of, and you can usually do things with them. You can either sell them on the black market or on the fur trade, but you can also use these items for making clothing, making weapons, making special items, something that's personal to your character.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but you can gather ingredients. This is a supernatural world. This is everything is touched by magic in some way, and that includes the plants and mushrooms and all these things growing around you. So you can harvest ingredients from the natural world, and they tend to give you special little bonuses. Maybe they're poisonous. Maybe they give you a little buff here. Um, you can spend a little bit of time preserving them, mixing them together to create concoctions or recipes, and you can just carry them into the next session, into battle, and use them for whatever they give you.
Yeah, and I
And
like that
this,
a lot because I know my players, at least, they they haven't done it as much, I think, lately. But it used to be that they would often, they kill a monster. Okay, what can I harvest from this to keep for later? Clearly,
Mhm.
these dragon scales have to be worth something. Can I get this slime for, this acid slime for something else? Trying to figure out all those things that they can do with it. And you lay it out very clearly and easily for without like being too specific, I think, at least on certain things, on most things, to allow players to kind of harvest things and then create, whatever they want. And in typical Savage fashion, not going too detailed and allowing
Mm.
for GMs to make the broad brushstrokes and the general rulings on certain things. Like, yes, you killed this small squirrel. Yes, you can get fur from it. No, you cannot make a full coat out of that one squirrel.
Sure.
Not that I don't know if that squirrels in uh in Vermilium, but
There are no.
Yeah, there are no.
There are no.
Okay. Now the money system, and this is one of the parts I haven't gone to. I haven't read the lore up enough yet. On this book, because I've been reading through it, but I haven't gone through the whole thing yet. The money system is based on a currency called Vermilium, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And it's a red metal. It's basically equatable to gold. There's a red rush instead of a gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
And people going out and harvesting it. Now, is there just kind of, this is more of a me question almost. Is there anything specific about Vermilion that's different? Is it just a precious metal, or is there something mystical about it?
We could be getting into spoiler territory here.
Okay, then I'll stop. I'll shut up then. Okay. If you want to know, you gotta read the book.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I will say that one nice thing about the book is, and I like that when people do this. Obviously, there's player section, and there is a more of a GM section. Actually, you usually say, okay, this is going forward. This is the GM section here, and so I like that you call that out, because it does make it easier for players to, because it's not usually worth it, to print two storybooks for these settings. And so it's nice to have that kind of separation. So, hey, players, don't go any further. This is you're getting to territory that you do not belong in. And a lot of that's lore stuff, and there's a lot of nice, very helpful, detailed lore, but not, again, like I said, not overly detailed. You did add some new powers in here, which are a lot of fun. Now that since this came out last year, I'm trying to remember, when you wrote this, was the Fantasy Companion already out?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I couldn't remember, because if I had a different line of questioning if it was not. Is there now, your intention for the book though is to only need the Savage Worlds core rulebook, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything from the Fantasy Companion that you feel like would be, obviously, players can do whatever they want, or GM and game groups can do whatever they want. Is there anything from the Fantasy Companion that you think is helpful for Vermilion?
It's a good question. I really liked the, going off the back of the setting rule we were just discussing about finding a community. I think the stronghold rules from the Fantasy Companion would be really quite useful. If the players wanted to, if they were forming a gang or a bounty hunting group or a posse, they wanted to form their own base of operations, that might be a fun rule to include. I think the powers section was really fun. The sort of additional modifiers you can apply to powers, I think that could fit really well into Vermilion. The only reason I didn't include those was because I didn't want to have to reference a second book.
Yeah, that is one of the difficulties I think that some people face. Is okay, here's the setting book, but we are already having to reference one book, right? We always say, okay, you need the you need the core rule book already. Then here is this other book, and then to say, okay, you also need this third book. You're that's starting to cause problems for people trying to get access to this stuff in the first place. So I absolutely understand that. But obviously, for those of you who have a fantasy book, definitely look at, feel free to add in whatever you want, because it's your game. There's so many things in here that I want to talk about. I'm trying to figure out which things to talk about next. I guess let's talk about the arcane backgrounds that you have in here, because
sure.
I liked what you did with them, because it's not some of your arcane backgrounds are pretty straightforward, like what we'd expect, right? But you also use them for some other kinds of characters than just magic casters. Essentially, there's other things that you're using them for. Also, we have we have an engineer, that's a weird science type guy a little bit. You have the priest, that makes kind of sense, so some sort of miracles or whatever. But you also have the skinwalker as an arcane background. Well, let's start there. What's a skinwalker, and why is it an arcane background?
So a skinwalker is a shape changer, a were creature, essentially. It's an arcane background. I've played around with these rules for years, actually. I included werewolves way back in the day, at the start of my campaign. And I wanted them to be a little bit different. So the idea of a skinwalker, and with another one of the arcane backgrounds, is that you get a hindrance first to unlock that arcane background. The reason it's a hindrance is because you can essentially catch it from other skinwalkers if you fall from one of their attacks and you roll badly on your leading out roll or your bigger rolls. You essentially catch this minor hindrance, and that unlocks this arcane background for you. The idea of the skinwalker is that you can embrace this, or you can try and fight it. If you embrace it and you use it more often, you can get more and more powerful, but you also risk losing yourself more to this disease.
Yeah, perfect. And then you have that kind of scenario for a lot of your, or not a lot, but for a few of them,
Mm-hmm.
because you also have, while you have your were creatures, you also have some other things like was it like, I can't remember the name that you used, but basically vampires.
Oh, the blood hunter, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So yeah, blood hunters. See, the blood hunters, which is when I think blood hunter, I usually think people who are hunting vampires or other creatures, but this is different. These are the vampires essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also an arcane background. And then I'm trying to remember, was there a third one? I can't feel like there was a third one. I can't remember.
There isn't a third one. There used to be a third one, but I actually shifted that to just being more of a hindrance than an arcane background. But that might change in an upcoming supplement.
Oh,
might introduce another arcane. Yeah, might introduce another arcane background there.
Okay. Yeah. So that's it's an interesting way of doing it, because instead of just having okay, here's some new features you have to take, as here's a whole entire arcane background with powers you can take, and it's not just like the were ones. It's not just you can shape change now. There's other powers that you're able to take as well. It just has to be trapped, inside the idea of you being a skinwalker.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is always fun. So you can take smite with a limitation itself, and it's just your body, I guess, grows stronger for a couple turns to ferociously hit as a skinwalker, and I think it's a lot of fun. One of the other things, I think I want to kind of jump ahead through the book a little bit more. One of the things I really like to see in a lot of these Savage Worlds books out there is adventure generators. And you included that, and we kind of talked about there. You have a lot of things with twists in here. And I like that you have this extra twist complication table in here. One of the things that I'm wanting to do more of is solo play, and so when I see adventures having adventure generators in them, that means it's going to be easier for me to kind of get an idea for an adventure for solo play to play through as a my own anti-hero, as a one, just myself, and these adventure generators help a lot to kind of help ensure that we can do that. So that's a good inclusion as well. I appreciate that. Before we kind of get into your Kickstarter, is there anything else that I did not mention about this book that you want to mention?
I think you pretty much covered it, Goose, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I really like the book. This is a good size. Also, I think I talked about some sizes, some other books that we've talked about on the channel. A lot of them, I think, it doesn't matter which ones. But there's a lot of the other ones are the more D&D size. This one is closer to the Savage Worlds main book size. At least for my book, it is the same height. So when you put it on your shelf, it's going to be this. It's going to look the same as all the other books, which shelf appeal is important. Now it is slightly thicker. You have an extra little bit there, but I think that's actually, I don't see a problem with that, just because it's going to look correct on the shelf. And then when you have it on the table, you're just going to have it open. It doesn't really matter how wide it is. So gives it a little extra room, and to kind of view everything. I like that a lot. Again, I keep going on about the artwork, but I like the artwork a lot. Now that you explain that he's a comic book artist, that kind of that makes sense to me.
I sort of just found him on Instagram. It's just so lucky, because he really helped bring everything to life so well. And he's got the exact style I wanted. I wanted something that was quite cartoonish, quite lighthearted, but the things that he was drawing were quite sinister, and that really represented the sort of Gilded Age theme that I was going for. Something that looked very pristine and nice on the outside, but was hiding a darker inside.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to your Kickstarter. I'm gonna refresh it just so we have updated numbers here. But this is for Vermilium, the Blood Hunt, not the Blood Hunt, but Blood Hunt. And tell us about what is Blood Hunt.
So Blood Hunt actually started out as a one sheet. So I started releasing one sheets about 4 or 5 years ago now, just to sort of test the waters with Vermilium as a setting. And Blood Hunt was the first one. It's a It's a survival horror adventure. It takes place on a mountain during a blizzard. The the anti-heroes are hired on, or they enter a competition to hunt this monster that's terrorizing the local town. Only to then become the hunted. It's quite a simple premise. That did really well as an adventure. Got some pretty good reviews. People seem to like it, and it really sort of paved the way for the Vermilium setting to come out. Excuse me. But like I said, that was 4 years ago, and I always wanted to do something more with it. I always wanted to expand it. So Vermilium Blood Hunt is now a 14-page adventure from what was a 2-page adventure. Mm-hmm. It's been expanded with all kinds of new things, new NPCs, new scenes, new monsters, new artifacts, new magic items to collect, new battle maps for the first time. And it's also going to come with 6 other Savage Tales, just based in and around the same town. So it kind of forms a mini sandbox campaign.
Yeah, we talked about having strongholds and such. So this would be, and like having like a town where you can call your home base. So this could be that town.
Exactly. Yeah. So it gives you a bunch of NPCs, a bunch of potential allies and friends, and somewhere the anti-heroes can hang their hat, essentially. Really use that sort of strangers in a strange land setting rule to put it to good use. Mm-hmm. And it's also got new rules for craft. So crafting, I don't think we touched actually in Vermilium. Is another
kind of like mentioned it briefly, but yeah.
So as well as taking monster parts and making sort of items of clothing and weapons out of, you can also sort of craft your own items, whether they be sort of mundane weapons and armor and all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff, or magic items as well. You can start crafting with a special edge. Vermilion Blood Hunt introduces rules to craft taxidermy creatures and animal companions and familiars, if that's your bag.
So taxidermy, like creatures to be like moving creatures, like you say taxidermy. Yeah,
animated taxidermy constructs. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. I'm that's not my personal style of play, just because I hate controlling more than one character. I say that as the GM who has to control multiple characters all the time. But when I'm playing, I like to just control my character and not other characters. But I think there's going to be plenty of people out there who definitely like that kind of feel. I know that's a very common play style that a lot of people like. So that's actually, it sounds really cool. That's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, cryptic companions. That's cool. Nice. So now this currently is just a PDF campaign. Mm-hmm. But I know there is a stretch goal to get a print on demand voucher, correct?
Yes, correct. So if we get to £12.50, everyone's going to get a print on demand voucher for Vermilion Blood Hunt. Awesome. Automatically. And
then when we get to $17.50, some awesome battle maps I love when I can have like an adventure and have all the battle maps for that adventure, especially in digital version. So I can just I use a TV as my battle map.
Oh, nice.
And so I use a program called Arc and Forge, and I'll just load that up, and then it automatically kind of grids everything out the correct size and everything, and that makes it just super easy to kind of share maps and have a lot of fun with that way. So
that's cool.
So let's hope. But here's hoping that we can get there. I mean, you are already at, we've only been live for how many hours now? 8?
Oh, like 8 or 9, yeah. I think.
Yeah, 8 or 9 hours, and we're already at 1,000. So I think we can get there. It's not a problem. I still need to back it. It's been a busy day. I'm sorry I haven't backed it yet. I plan to. Yeah. So go ahead and check out the Kickstarter, everyone. If you're interested in this setting, I do recommend checking out the link down below. This is to the Drive-Thru RPG page, where you can buy a physical book through their print-on-demand service, or you get the PDFs. Up to you. I personally also went to the physical book because I like having my physical books, and I like that shelf appeal. So, and the art's just beautiful, and I really like to kind of show that off because I think I honestly think this is one of the best looking Savage Worlds books, outside Pinnacle's books, and even amongst them, sometimes some of them I think this is better than some of them as well. I really like the art style. So yeah, cool. Well, like I said, check those out. Ben, what after this is over? Also, you said you have plans for Vermilium going forward. You have other plans as well. How can people hear about the updates to Vermilium and all of the other projects and stuff that you have coming out in the future?
So I'm pretty active on social media. If you guys want to follow me on Facebook, X, or Instagram, or even Reddit under White Witch Games, I can let you know about upcoming projects.
Awesome. And are you on the Discord servers at all?
I'm on the Discord as well. Yeah, you can get me there.
Yeah, if you're not aware, like if you want to know like what's happening, there's like 3 main places you need to be: the Savage Worlds Reddit, the Savage Worlds Facebook group, and the unofficial. It's called the unofficial, but I feel like it's the most official thing that they have. The unofficial Savage Worlds Discord server as well. So definitely check those out. That's where pretty much everyone is talking in one of those, and that includes people from Pinnacle, includes myself, includes Ben. Check out those communities, and check out Vermilium. I'm super. I wish I need more time because this is the campaign I've been, or the setting I've been wanting to play like probably the most for the past like year or so. Just kind of been putting off getting it, but I finally got it. I'm like I'm in the middle of a like Pathfinder campaign right now. I'm like, don't want to not enough time.
Well, thanks for getting it, man.
No, I mean, I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to running it eventually. So go and check that out. If you have any questions for us, leave them in the comments below. We'll try to answer them at some other point. And until next time. Next week I am off. I am on vacation next week, so I will not be doing anything. And then the week after is likely not going to happen either because I will just be getting back from vacation and starting back at a different job that week. So all things changing. So the next 2 weeks, I'm probably not going to be on unless I hear someone really want me to come on for something those next 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'll see you all in 3 weeks. Thanks, Ben, for coming, and thank you all for joining us. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for having me.